It is a most beautiful evening. Oh, yes, it is. It just is. I was just talking to my son, and wow, I, I'm I was sitting here in awe. I'm like, how do you understand this? What he does. So we're gonna do a live stream another day, and he'll share. Cause I I didn't know, but we'll share together. Cause I'm not gonna throw him out there by himself. But I trust that everyone had a great day today, and that um, you were productive. You had some kind of fun. You practice revision, but you also know that the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. See? Anywho, we are on chapter 26, Gethsemane. Now, if you grew up in church, you know the Garden of Gethsemane, yeah? The Garden of Gethsemane is where Peter betrayed Jesus, and then, Judas sold him. So there's a lot that happens in Gethsemane. But tonight, we're going to look at it from the principle, from the precepts, from the law's perspective. Oh, yes. Sorry, just took a sip. Chapter 26, Gethsemane. Then cometh Jesus with them unto a place called Gethsemane, and saith unto the disciples, well, sit ye here, while I go and pray yonder. Matthew 26:36. Now, let me throw something out here real quick before we continue. I know that some people clutch their pearls when they hear scripture, they hear the Bible, they go, ugh, church. And that's what you do. But may I be so bold as to suggest to you to listen to what you hear. So the church may have hurt you, and that's all right. But that does not remove God from your bosom. Because that's right where God is, your bosom. So tonight, you see the same things that hold the sun in the sky and the waters on the earth. That's what's in scripture. It has nothing to do with man. So perhaps open a little bit. Just open yourself a little bit and see what you are privy to learning about yourself. Now, let's read chapter 26, Gethsemane. Let's read that introduction one more time. Then cometh Jesus with them unto a place called Gethsemane, and saith unto the disciples, sit ye here while I go and pray yonder. Matthew 26, verse 36. You see, a most wonderful mystical romance is told in the story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. But man has failed to see the light of its symbology and has mistakenly interpreted this mystical union as an agonizing experience in which Jesus pleaded in vain with his Father to change his destiny. Gethsemane is to the mystic the garden of creation, the place in consciousness where man goes to realize his defined objectives. Gethsemane is a compound word meaning to press out an oily substance. Geth, to press out, and shemen, an oily substance. The story of Gethsemane reveals to the mystic in dramatic symbology the act of creation. Just as man contains within himself an oily substance, which in the act of creation is pressed out into a likeness of himself, so he has within himself a divine principle, his consciousness, which conditions itself as a state of consciousness and without assistance presses out or objectifies itself. A garden is a cultivated piece of ground, a specifically prepared field where seeds of the gardener's own choice are planted and cultivated. Let me say it again. A garden is a cultivated piece of ground, land then, a specifically prepared field where seeds of the gardener's own choice are planted and cultivated. Gethsemane is such a garden, the place in consciousness where the mystic goes with his properly defined objectives. This garden is entered when man takes his attention from the world round about him and places it on his objectives. Man's clarified desires are seeds containing the power and plans of self expression, and like the seeds within man, these too are buried within an oily substance, a joyful, thankful attitude of mind. As man contemplates being and possessing that which he desires to be and to possess, he has begun the process of pressing out or the spiritual act of creation. These seeds are pressed out and planted. Then man loses himself in a wild, mad state of joy, consciously feeling and claiming himself to be that which he formerly desired to be. Desires expressed or pressed out result in the passing of that particular desire. Man cannot possess a thing and still desire to possess it at one and the same time. Let's say it again. Man cannot possess a thing and still desire to possess it at one and the same time. So, as one consciously appropriates the feeling of being the thing desired, this desire to be the thing passes. It is realized. The receptive attitude of mind, feeling and receiving the impression of being the thing desired, is the fertile ground or womb which receives the seed or the divine or defined objective. The seed which is pressed out of a man grows into the likeness of the man from whom it was pressed. I think Neville said that in a rather polite way. Let me read it to you again. And when I read it, listen to it and you will understand. The seed which is pressed out of a man grows into the likeness of the man from whom it was pressed. Who's your daddy? That's pretty much what he's telling you. So you see, we see it in the physical, but he's telling you it happens here in consciousness, in the mental. Your mental attitude must become your behavior, your lifestyle, your destiny. I digress. Likewise, the mystical seed, your conscious claim that you are that which you heretofore desire to be, will grow into the likeness of you from whom and into whom it is pressed. Well, yes, Gethsemane is the cultivated garden of romance, where the disciplined man goes to press seeds of joy or defined desires out of himself into his receptive attitude of mind, there to care for and nurture them by consciously walking in the joy of being all that formerly he desired to be. Feel with the great gardener the secret thrill of knowing that things and qualities not now seen will be seen as soon as these conscious impressions grow and ripen to maturity. Your consciousness is Lord and husband. The conscious state in which you dwell is wife or beloved. Say it again. Your consciousness is Lord and husband. The conscious state in which you dwell is wife or beloved. This state made visible is your son bearing witness of you, his father and mother, for your visible world is made in the image and likeness of the state of consciousness in which you live. Your world and the fullness thereof are nothing more or less than your defined consciousness objectified. Sounds like correspondence. As within, so without. Thank you. Knowing this to be true, see to it that you choose well the mother of your children, that conscious state in which you live, your conception of yourself. What did he say? He said, see to it that you choose well the mother of your children, that conscious state in which you live, your conception of yourself. Sit with that one for a moment. The wise man chooses his wife with great discretion. He realizes that his children must inherit the qualities of their parents. And so he devotes much time and care to the selection of their mother. The mystic knows that the conscious state in which he lives is the choice that he has made of a wife, the mother of his children, that this state must in time embody itself within his world. So he is ever select in his choice and always claims himself to be his highest ideal. He consciously defines himself as that which he desires to be. Then man realizes that the conscious state in which he lives is the choice that he has made of a mate. He will be more careful of his moods and feelings. He will not permit himself to react to suggestions of fear, lack, or any undesirable impression. Well, such suggestions of lack could never pass the watch of the disciplined mind of the mystic, for he knows that every conscious claim must in time be expressed as a condition of his world, of his environment. So he remains faithful to his beloved, his defined objective, by defining and claiming and feeling himself to be that which he desires to express. Let a man ask himself if his defined objective would be a thing of joy and beauty if it were realized. What will you ask? Well, this thing that I want, would it be a thing of joy and beauty if I had it? If his answer is, well, yes, the affirmative, well, then he may know that his choice of a bride is a princess of Israel, a daughter of Judah. For every defined objective which expresses joy when realized is a daughter of Judah, the King of praise. Jesus took with him into his hour of prayer his disciples, or disciplined attributes of mind, and commanded them to watch while he prayed, so that no thought or belief that would deny the realization of his desire might enter his consciousness. Follow the example of Jesus, who, with his desires clearly defined, entered the Garden of Gethsemane, the state of joy, accompanied by his disciples, his disciplined mind, to lose himself in a world or lose himself in a wild joy of realization. The fixing of his attention on his objective was his command to his disciplined mind to watch and remain faithful to that fixation. Contemplating the joy that would be his on realizing his desire, he began the spiritual act of generation, the act of pressing out the mystical seed, or his defined desire. In this fixation he remained, claiming and feeling himself to be that which he, before he entered Gethsemane, desired to be, until his whole being or consciousness was bathed in an oily sweat, joy, resembling blood or life in short, until his whole consciousness was permeated with the living, sustained joy of being his defined objective. At this fixation, or as this fixation is accomplished, so that the mystic knows by his feeling of joy that he has passed from his former conscious state into his present consciousness, the Passover or crucifixion is attained. This crucifixion or fixation of the new conscious claim is followed by the Sabbath, a time of rest. There is always an interval of time between the impression and its expression, between the conscious claim and its embodiment. This interval is called the Sabbath, the period of rest or non effort, the day of entombment. To walk unmoved in the consciousness of being or possessing a certain state is to keep the Sabbath. To walk unmoved in the consciousness of being or possessing a certain state is to keep the Sabbath. The story of the crucifixion beautifully expresses this mystical stillness or rest. We are told that after Jesus cried out, "It is finished," he was placed in a tomb. There he remained for the entire Sabbath. When the new state or consciousness is appropriated, so you feel, by this appropriation, fixed and secure in the knowledge that it is finished, well, then you too will cry out, "It is finished," and will enter the tomb or Sabbath, an interval of time in which you will walk unmoved in the conviction that your new consciousness must be resurrected or made visible. Easter, the day of resurrection, falls on the first Sunday after the full moon in Aries. The mystical reason for this is simple. A defined area will not precipitate itself in the form of rain until this area reaches the point of saturation. Listen, a defined area will not precipitate itself in the form of rain until this area reaches the point of saturation. Just so the state in which you dwell will not express itself until the whole is permeated with the consciousness that it is, so that it is finished. What does that statement mean? Scientists would tell you in order for it to rain, you have to have so much moisture in the air that the air is saturated with moisture so that when it gets so full, it has to do what? Rain, precipitate. So he's saying our consciousness must become so full of what we say we are that we make it rain, which is to show the evidence of what you claimed yourself to be. As above, so below. You've got to be full, saturated in order to see that expression. So too must the atmosphere be saturated with moisture before we can see rain. Your defined objective is the imaginary state, just as the equator is the imaginary line across which the sun must pass to mark the beginning of spring. This state, like the moon, has no light or life of itself, but will reflect the light of consciousness or sun. I am the light of the world. I am the resurrection and the life. As Easter is determined by the full moon in Aries, so too is the resurrection of your conscious claim determined by the full consciousness of your claim, by actually living as this new conception. You see, most men, not males, but men as in humanity, Most men fail to resurrect their objectives because they fail to remain faithful to their newly defined state until this fullness is attained. If man would bear in mind the fact that there can be no Easter or day of resurrection until after the full moon, he would realize that the state into which he has consciously passed will be expressed or resurrected only after he has remained within the state of being or his defined objective. Until his whole self thrills with the feeling of actually being his conscious claim. Inconsciously, how? How? Until his whole self thrills with the feeling of actually being his conscious claim. Well, how? By living in this state of being. That's how you do it. By living in the state of being. So until his whole self thrills with the feeling of actually being his conscious claim, in consciously living in this state of being it, and only in this way will man ever resurrect or realize his desire. Ooh, we will close with this chapter tonight. Whew, you really want to snuggle in for this one. Chapter 27, a formula for victory. A formula for victory. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you. Joshua 1, verse 3. Say it again. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you. Joshua 1, verse 3. Listen to what it means. The majority of people are familiar with the story of Joshua capturing the city of Jericho. What they do not know is that this story is the perfect formula for victory under any circumstances and against all odds. Angela, how you gonna say that? Like this. What they do not know is that the story of Joshua taking Jericho is the perfect formula for victory under any circumstances and against all odds. It is recorded that Joshua was armed only with the knowledge that every place that the sole of his foot should tread upon would be given to him, that he desired to capture or tread upon the city of Jericho, but found the walls separating him from the city impassable. Oh, sounds like odds to me. It seemed physically impossible for Joshua to get beyond these massive walls and stand upon the city of Jericho. Yet, he was driven by the knowledge of the promise that regardless of the barriers and obstacles separating him from his desires, if he could but stand upon the city, it would be given to him. Mhm. Wow. The book of Joshua further records that instead of fighting this giant problem of the wall, Joshua employed the services of a harlot. Rahab, you know what a harlot is. Let's say it the way the young people say it. A hoe. Joshua employed the services of a hoe. Her name was Rahab, and sent her as a spy into the city. As Rahab entered her house, which stood in the midst of the city, Joshua, who was securely barred by the impassable walls of Jericho, blew on his trumpet 7 times. At the seventh blast, the walls crumbled and Joshua entered the city victoriously. Now, to the uninitiated, this story is senseless. To the one who sees it as a psychological drama rather than as a historical record, it is most revealing. If we would follow the example of Joshua, our victory would be similarly simple. Joshua symbolizes to you, the reader, the listener, your present state. So wherever you're at right now, whatever you're dealing with right now, that's you. You're Joshua. The city of Jericho symbolizes your desire or your defined objective. The walls of Jericho symbolize the obstacles between you and the realization of your objectives. Hmm, That wall could be excuses. I don't know anybody. I ain't got no money. That wall could be anything. But here, the foot symbolizes the understanding, placing the sole of the foot upon a definite place indicates fixing a definite psychological state. Rahab, the spy, is your ability to travel secretly or psychologically to any place in space. Consciousness knows no frontier. No one can stop you from dwelling psychologically at any point or in any state in time or space. Regardless of the physical barriers separating you from your objective, you can, without effort or help of anyone, annihilate time, space, and barriers. Thus, you can dwell psychologically in the desired state. So, although you may not be able to tread physically upon a state or city, you can always tread psychologically upon any desired state. By treading psychologically, I mean that you can now, this moment, close your eyes, and after visualizing or imagining a place or state other than your present one, actually feel that you are now in such a place or state. You can feel this condition to be so real that upon opening your eyes, you are amazed to find that you are not physically there. A harlot, oh, as you know, gives to all men that which they ask of her. Rahab the harlot symbolizes your infinite capacity to psychologically assume any desirable state without questioning whether or not you are physically or morally fit to do so. You can today capture the modern city of Jericho or your defined objective if you will psychologically reenact this story of Joshua. But to capture the city and realize your desires, you must carefully follow the formula of victory as laid down in this book of Joshua. This is the application of this victorious formula as a modern mystic reveals it today. First, define your objective, not the manner in which you will obtain it. Define your objective. Health, wealth, money in the bank, relationship, car, pet. Define your objective, not the manner of obtaining it. Just pure and simple, your objective. Know exactly what it is you desire so that you have a clear mental picture of it. Step one, define your objective. Know exactly what it is you desire so that you have a clear mental picture of it. Not how you will get it. Let us take a moment to define your objective. Just right where you are, define. Listen, you know what it is. You know what it is. You notice how he says to define the objective. Don't worry about, oh my God, am I worthy? Let me read it again. Step one, define your objective, pure and simple. Know exactly what it is you desire so that you have a clear mental picture of it. You got that clear mental picture? Take your time. We ain't in no hurry. Take your time because I'm doing the same thing as you. Good. You got it now? Oh, but Angela, what if I don't know which one to choose? Just pick. It doesn't matter which one you pick. You have to start somewhere. Just pick one. Just pick something. Step two, take your attention away from the obstacles which separate you from your objective and place your thought on the objective itself. Take your attention away from the obstacles which separate you from your objective and place your thought on the objective itself. I don't have any connections. I don't know anybody. I don't have enough money. I don't have all the certifications. Take your attention away from the obstacles which separate you from your objective and place your thought on the objective itself. Take your time. Good. You got that part? Three, close your eyes and feel that you are already in the city or state that you would capture. Remain within this psychological state until you get a conscious reaction of complete satisfaction in this victory. Three, close your eyes and feel that you are already in the city or state that you would capture. So, in other words, you have your objective. So, remain within this psychological state until you get a conscious reaction of complete satisfaction in this victory. Take your time. Take your time. Just take your time and remain within that psychological state until you get a conscious reaction of complete satisfaction in this victory. Then, by simply opening your eyes, return to your former conscious state. You see, every time we go into the silence, those 3 steps are what we do. I will read it again at the very end of the chapter so we can go into the silence with it. I will read it to you. So it says, this secret journey into the desired state with its subsequent psychological reaction of complete satisfaction is all that is necessary to bring about total victory. This victorious psychical state or cycle state will embody itself in spite or despite all opposition. It has the plan and power of self expression. From this point forward, follow the example of Joshua, who, after psychologically dwelling in the desired state until he received a complete conscious reaction of victory, did nothing more to bring about his victory than to blow 7 times on his trumpet. The seventh blast symbolizes the seventh day, a time of stillness or rest, the interval between the subjective and objective states, a period of pregnancy or joyful expectancy. This stillness is not the stillness of the body, but rather the stillness of the mind. A perfect passivity, which is not indolence, meaning laziness, but a living stillness born of trust in this immutable law of consciousness. Let me say that to you again so you understand what it means to be in the Sabbath. It is not a stillness of the body, but rather the stillness of the mind. A perfect passivity, which is not laziness, but a living stillness born of the trust in this immutable law of consciousness. That is what stillness, the Sabbath, means. That you trust the immutable law of consciousness. As within, so without, as above, so below. Immutable law of consciousness. You trust it. That is where you anchor yourself and you're not swayed by what's outside. So, stillness of mind or the Sabbath is trust in the immutable law of consciousness. You see, those not familiar with this law or formula for victory, in attempting to still their minds, succeed only in acquiring a quiet tension, which is nothing more than compressed anxiety. But you who know this law will find that after capturing the psychological state, which would be yours if you were already victoriously and actually entrenched in that city, will move forward towards the physical realization of your desires. How? You will do this without doubt or fear, in a state of mind fixed in the knowledge of a prearranged victory. Why? Because you trust in the immutable law of consciousness. Oh, that will never work. You're crazy. You're so delusional. But you, after hearing all of those things about yourself, you hold fast to the immutable law of consciousness. What is the immutable law of consciousness? What I say I am, I must become. As within, so without. As above, so below. I plant, I must reap what I've planted. That is the immutable law of consciousness. So when you hold fast to that without doubt, without fear, well, then you too will take the city. Why, though, does he tell you that? He says, because those who don't know it, they attempt to still their minds, but they only succeed in acquiring a quiet tension, which is nothing more than compressed anxiety. You see, he calls it knowledge. When you know that the law is what it is and it will bring to pass what you plant, you see how you get your relaxation? That's what he's saying. Anyhow, let us continue. You will not be afraid of the enemy because the outcome has been determined by the psychological state that preceded the physical offensive. And all the forces of heaven and earth cannot stop the victorious fulfillment of that state. Stand still in the psychological state defined as your objective until you feel the thrill of victory. Then, with confidence born of the knowledge of this law, watch the physical realization of your objective. Stand still and see the salvation of the law with you. Oh Lord, well, we're done the book. We are done the book. Good. Let us go backwards now because so do you see what you're trying to, not trying, do you see what you're doing when you persist? This is why you must grasp that it is not a technique at all. It's not a technique. He's telling you that the ultimate thing that you do is you believe in the fulfillment of your destiny or whatever you want to call it, your desire. You believe in it because the law says. You believe that it is possible. So that's why it's not a technique. But what you use to help you believe or trust in the immutable law is the technique. But it is not a technique. To trust in the immutable law is a way of living. That is where he's trying to get you to rise to, so that you can walk down the street and say, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And you know you don't have to speak. You know that you believe it right here. You trust. So that whatever your desire is, you say, it is finished. It is finished. So get comfortable. If you're driving, check out the replay because you got to focus on the street. But if you're home, stretch. Hmm? Stretch that body out. Just stretch it out. Take a couple of deep breaths in and let them out. Because we are going to snuggle in here and get comfy. You ready? All right then. First, define your objective. Remember, now is not the time to tell me you're worthy or unworthy. It has nothing to do with it. There is one simple task before you. Define your objective. In other words, you know how your mother will say, what you want? What do you want? That is your objective, right? Okay, then. Define your objective. Pure and simple. Know exactly what it is you desire so that you have a clear mental picture. Take your time. Do you have it? A clear mental picture? Good. Step 2. Take your attention away from the obstacles which separate you from your objective and place your thought on the objective itself. Oh no, oh no, I don't. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Remove your attention from your obstacles, from any obstacles that separate you from your objective, and place your thought on the objective itself. That is what you do. Take your time. Don't mind my boy laughing. He's playing with friends. Take your time. You got it? Now, thirdly, close your eyes and feel that your objective is real. Well, you have a clear mental image of it. A clear mental image is a blueprint that you recreate from, like a stencil. That is why it is essential you have a clear mental picture, because that is the stencil. So if you have a stencil, don't you recreate perfect artwork every time? All right then. You have your stencil. See how good that feels? Just begin to feel it, that you are already in the city or state that you would capture. Now, remain within this psychological state until you get a conscious reaction of complete satisfaction in this victory. And then by simply opening your eyes, return to your former conscious state. Take your time. Take your time. Good. Now, remember, this stillness is not the stillness of the body, but rather the stillness of the mind. The stillness of the mind, which is not to be mistaken with attempting to quiet or still the mind. How can you tell the difference between the two? The stilling of the mind, which is through force, or the stillness that occurs because you trust in this immutable law of consciousness. Can you spot the difference? Do you see the difference? You try and force your stillness, which Neville politely calls quiet tension, which is just compressed anxiety. His words. But what you do is stillness emerges as a result. Oh, cause and effect, you say, Angela? Yes. Stillness is the effect, the thing that you will experience because you trust in the immutable law of consciousness. That's all it is, right? That's it. And when you trust in that immutable law of consciousness, you will do it without doubt or fear in a state of mind fixed in the knowledge of a prearranged victory. Then, with confidence born of the knowledge of this law. So, did you understand it? Confidence born of the knowledge. Confidence is the effect. The knowledge that you exercise is what brings about the confidence. What knowledge? The knowledge of the immutable law that tells you you have to reap what you've sown. Remember how he said to choose wisely the mother of your children? You choose well the thoughts. Because if you don't choose those well, you will end up with external offspring, meaning external experiences that you are rather displeased with. So choose wisely your thought. I'm not going to preach, but I trust tonight that it made sense to you and that you will apply it. I'll do something to help you out, don't worry. I shall. Um, I trust that it was helpful to you. Yes, K-Frame, I trust it was helpful. K-Frame, hey, Cyber, soul of a man. Uh, Dr. Fry, hey, Shea Butter. You are over here all on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, that's where you are. Oh, hey, Saps. Saps is here on Twitter. Now, who's here on Fanbase tonight? That deal. Flo Smiles, KZ, and Moon and Dolphin Duck. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I'll play the nighttime chime for a few moments, if you would like. If you would like. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Much love to each and every one of you. Much love. Good night. Good night.